But if we do a better job of sharing that story, we get more people excited about what's happening here in their backyard again. You guys are a part of the community. We need to kind of share what's happening. And I see too many people that don't understand what's happening right now. This isn't the place that's known for launching the rockets or building some of the craft, but the research that went into making all that possible. And it was part of that at one point. So I just want to kind of share not just the history, but where we're moving and what's happening here at Langley. I'm trying to work more of Wallops, and especially since I know Rocket Lab has made Wallops kind of their northern hemisphere place to launch rockets. I want to tie more to them too, so people realize we are doing all this work in Virginia. Since I came to the Air and Space Science Center, one of the things that I've noticed is a pretty interesting dilemma is the branding. I've worked with a lot of different centers. So are we like the National Air and Space Center, or Udvar Hazy, which is a lot of artifacts and you talk about the history of the planes? Or are we more like the Science Museum of Virginia that's more hands-on and engaging, but there are very little artifacts in that facility. So it's kind of how do we walk that line? And since it's been dubbed the Air and Space Science Center, they're trying to do both. So we need to make sure we walk that line very carefully. We need to make sure that we're doing a good job on both sides of that, or we need to lean into one side or the other. What I'm afraid of, and the analogy that I used to use, I loved the Subaru Baja, but it was neither a great truck or a great car. It was a smash up of both of them, and it was kind of mediocre at both of them. We need to make sure we're great at both if we're going to say that we're both. So that was one of the things. How would you define our space and our programming? And it's something I need to work with our community partners, with the people on the floor, with the educators at the museum, with the docents that I'll get to at some point. How do we walk that line, being both a historical museum in some ways, as well as a science museum, and moving it forward? I know that we have the opportunity to show guests how Hampton Roads has been that innovator and leader in aviation aerospace. And if you look at what we have on the floor, we have a model, the Wright Flyer and the Orion 1 capsule. We have 111 years worth of flight and aerospace research on that building. We need to do a better job of kind of helping kids follow that timeline and that evolution of engineering that allowed us to get to that point. Our audience, I wanted to share with you what's happened if you've not seen it. Youth, it's declining. School groups aren't coming in, and they're not coming in for several reasons. In some cases, some places can say, literally, we do not have the bus drivers. Some places it's after COVID, we have kids that we need to catch up on their test scores. So we're going to kind of keep them in and make sure that they're starting to build up some of those skills that they're lacking over the last couple of years and build some of that up. So our school groups have gone down internally and externally. We've seen that. I'll give you those numbers here in a minute. What's really building us up right now, families and community on one side and seniors on the other side. That's true with what's coming into our doors. That's true of who accesses our website. We have an early childhood space there now. So that's changed the dynamics a little bit, but it's busy. We have younger families coming in now, bringing in younger kids to kind of explore the space. We've got intergenerational engagement opportunities, but we're not necessarily making sure that everyone's truly taking advantage of that. And we need to become more of a community resource. That means more events, more programming. We need to tie to downtown Hampton as they're trying to redevelop downtown as well. So the same would be seen with the seniors, intergenerational engagement and a community resource. Here's the difference. If you look at who's accessing what, the families and the young children are leaning more towards the science side in terms of what is that science engagement and looking forward. A lot of the seniors are, where's the contents and the information with some of the exhibitry you have on the floor? Again, we need to do a better job of both, and we can. We just need to focus on that. We have airplanes that kids walk past. We have artifacts, Apollo 12. We have the lunar lander. People walk past unless we do a really good explicit job of pointing out this is what makes it special. Highlight it with the right lights. And at some point with augmented reality, if we wanted to go that far. But we need to kind of point out what makes these artifacts special. Why is this unique? Why should I know about it? We need to kind of make sure we do that, because not everyone is going to run through and read a whole bunch of text which is out there. We just have to be careful about that. The text is there once we hook them. We got to hook someone first and wanting to know more about it. So that's where we're going to have to go with some of it. Just to let you know a little bit more on geography and numbers, in terms of the Hampton Roads walk-ups, we've had about 39,000 people in 2022 just walk up and come in. Out of that, 27,000 of those people were from the Hampton Roads region. So out of 173 zip codes in the Hampton Roads region, 70 zip codes had 0 people visit the center in 2022. We need to kind of let our neighbors and friends know there's a great resource right here in our own community. If we look at Virginia as a whole, out of the 12,000 people that came that weren't from Hampton Roads, only about 6,000 of those were in Virginia. The other 6,000 from out of state. So we can actually say that we're not doing a great job of spreading outside of the Hampton Roads region either. So we do have a big campaign of how do we grow the attention put towards this resource, because it is a fantastic resource. And I also put in the school visits here. I put in the extremes. One of the peaks was 2015. And then last year is one of the smaller years that we were actually open for the full year. You can see that in terms of school visits, we've actually dropped to 16% of what we were in 2015. And if you look at our outreach programs, we're at 32%. So we need to grow those numbers. But that's also why it's important that we start looking at families and community as well, because the school groups aren't going to grow as quickly as making sure that we engage the community around us and letting people know that we're a great place to visit on a Saturday, on a rainy day in the summer, at different times to explore some of it. I'm going to make sure I'm mindful of time, and I'm going to go through some of these quickly, but I will slow down at some point if anybody has any questions. The one thing I want to point out here, are we formal or informal, free choice, or non-formal? Just believe it or not, there's an argument depending on which research you read. Is a museum considered informal, free choice, or non-formal? There's a lot of debate in that. We don't need to go there. The reason I put it up there though, is that basically people have to self-select to come into our facility. That means it's not a formal classroom setting. We can write curriculum and resources for schools and classrooms, but if that number is dwindling, we need to make sure that we're engaging an audience so they want to come back again and again. We need to make sure that we engage them on history, those engaging storytelling, rather than just the standards of learning, the SOLs. We need to make sure they have ties locally so people have that relevance and that connection for themselves. Same with STEM. We need to talk about the stories, where we're going, even to the last part, the careers that tie to all the different things that are out there on the floor, so people can kind of make those connections and potential pathways. No child is going to select to go down those pathways unless they've had proper positive exposure to some of those STEM experiences. Until they've had a quality experience looking at some of that, saying, I can do that, I'm interested in that, where do I learn more about that? So we're that space that's supposed to create that awe and inspiration. Yep. Just to let you know, my first few steps was stabilization, accessibility, and policy. The one thing that I really wanted to put out here is accessibility. I think the center has outpriced some of our guests from being able to visit. So I've already started this month. We'll officially make the announcement next month that we are a Museums for All facility. That's a national program that means that any person that has SNAP benefits, or kind of like used to be food stamps, but the SNAP benefits with an EBT card, can get in and see the exhibits for $2. That's an audience we weren't going to have anyway. We're not losing money on this, but we're making sure that we're a resource for the whole community. So if you're in SNAP benefits, you can come in with your EBT card and say, I belong to this organization. You and 3 others can get in for $2 a piece to see the exhibits. You can pay extra for IMAX or Max Flight because we have to pay royalties on those. But now we're a resource for everyone, and everyone can come in and take advantage of the programming and see what's available. My next steps, trying to build up community partnerships. That's something that needs to be built up. There are a lot of places where we do not have the partnerships that we could have. So I started working with all the other regional museums. How do we work better together? How do we support each other's initiatives? I started working with higher education. I have a meeting coming up soon with Hampton University to talk about how we can get more students engaged in our place, to also kind of round out some of the support we need from volunteers that are more of the near peer volunteers that will appeal to some of the other kids we have coming in. I'm trying to work with governments a little bit differently, not just within Hampton City, but the state. Since that's where some of my background was, and I already worked in state government, we need to tie more to what's happening at the state level and get them invested in us as well. I'm working at overhauling some of the exhibits. I'm looking for new business partners. Boy, I'm trying to push really hard on Rocket Lab, and I've got a connection there. SSAI, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with, got some connections there. I'm trying to work with Eric Ingram, if you've ever heard of him, and that's Astro Access. He is handicapped in a wheelchair and always wanted to be an astronaut. So he's created a program that's used zero-G several times to actually take handicapped individuals through some of that pilot testing or some of that astronaut testing to kind of see how could we actually be part of this program moving into the future, which is a fascinating program. So we're going to get some exhibits from him and talk about that as well. But that brings us to the docent program, because what we really need to do is bring the exhibits we already have on the floor to life. You can walk past those exhibits, but they're static. They're going to be the same if you walk through now, if you walk through this summer, if you walk through next fall. What brings it to life are the people helping tell the stories and pointing out the parts that make those various artifacts unique. So we need to put some more digital signage out there for some of the people, but we also need you. We also need other people in the community to come in and help us tell the stories. I run education. I don't have those stories. I'm trying to collect them myself right now. So what we need is someone that's going to help be that interpreter that brings the exhibits to life. Stories always sell. Stories are actually what sell whenever you're trying to work with state governments. I can give them numbers all day long, and those numbers just seem to go in one ear and out the other because they see numbers all the time. But if I have that impassioned story to talk about the importance and that these are the positive educational connections for kids, that's going to help. So I need storytelling. I need that relevance and connectivity to the community. What we do need to work on, though, is what does that mean in terms of timing it for families to come through, kind of making sure we hit the right audience with the right speakers and the right way we kind of do this and the perception of some of this. This is why I also need a gallery educator on the floor, because what I need to hire someone that's going to also learn the stories from you, because I can't always be on the floor. Someone needs to be there. It's going to kind of shallow out the peaks and valleys, because if I have docents on the floor, there's going to be opportunities where a family is going to come in and learn great things, share that with their friends. And if they come in and there are no docents on the floor at the time, then they're going to miss out on all of that. So how do I kind of narrow that out from having a lot of great docents on these days and no docents on these days? Is I need to have some of my gallery educators that I need to hire learning from you and also sharing those stories. So as we get docents here, that's how we're going to try to fix that problem. In terms of adding content, I mentioned this earlier, 50%. The reason I put that in there is that 50% of the people are looking for the history, 50% of the people are looking for the science. So I need to kind of bring that up in terms of what we have on our website, which honestly is kind of thin right now. Expect to see some changes in that over time, but also what we have on the floor. I want to get the kids excited about the science, but I want them to go into some of those galleries and think of where is that going to take me in my career in the future, and to kind of consider those possibilities. And that's where we tie the science into it. So we're going to work on that. I just mentioned the peaks and valleys in offering. We're going to want to do some video production. I'm going to want to capture some of these stories. And in fact, I'd really love if I can pull enough money together at some point, working with Kennedy Space Center, where they actually have some of their people and it looks like a hologram. And if someone has a question, there's 6 buttons you can push and ask a question. And then someone that knows something about that artifact can tell that story. So if a docent isn't there, they can say, but how did this operate, move, change, add to our aviation history? Someone can push that button and then an image of somebody will appear and tell that story. That's the way to create that without just having videos, because at some point it becomes a lot of noise in the background. I also want to be mindful of that. I want someone to purposely touch a button and then someone appear and tell a story. That's going to grab some attention. We need, back to that, is creating opportunities to highlight some of that expertise. The next part of this is acknowledgement. So If you walk into the center, and I'm sure many of you have been there, there looks to be an old window off to the right-hand side by the ticketing station. That was an old membership desk. I've seen a museum put in a great docent volunteer, for lack of a better term, computer in that space. And it's kind of something I'm going to try to do, where I have a picture of people around here. Wouldn't it be great if you can actually see a picture of the docents and the volunteers that come to the center? They're not only acknowledged, but then it can say right underneath their name, this is where their expertise is at. This person's expertise is in talking about the Apollo 12 program. This person's expertise is talking about the HARV. And you know, someone is there. Oh, are they in today? You say, well, this person is in on Wednesdays and Fridays. This person is on these days, so that way we can start building up. When can I expect to see some of these experts come in? On top of that, I can find this person on the second floor, or I can find this person on the first floor. We're going to make sure that if there's expertise there, people know about it and know who to look for and how to take advantage of that. It also makes sure that we start to give some credit where credit's due, because I want some of the people to realize we have experts in this community that have worked on these things. You should talk with them. It also provides great opportunity for us to kind of start cross-training some of the younger volunteers and, like I said, the gallery floor staff. So these are the things that I'm looking at doing. Here's the timeline that I was told I was ambitious with, but I think we can do some of this. I got to hire the gallery educator. That will come up here within the next couple of weeks. I'm going to start bringing in some of the docents, hopefully in March, to kind of help train and work with the gallery educator and everybody else. So that will be happening in March. We're only a couple weeks away. Start video production hopefully in April. And really, I would like to advertise that the whole program is fully in operation. Even though we bring the docents back, I want to get everything out, including that computer and everything set up, so we actually have something to share before the summer kicks off. And that's really kind of the plan I have right now. I will say I am the interim director, so I'm reiterating that. I'm very optimistic that I'll move all this forward, but I have to be mindful that this is a plan I'm laying in place without any issues. I'm gonna have some docents back within a couple of weeks. We're going to actually have people on the floor helping that, but we're going to flesh this out so it becomes a full-fledged program, because I don't want it to be seen as a trickle of volunteers coming in. I would like to truly make it a program and get a lot more people engaged with it throughout the community. I was hoping to start here, and in fact, that's why I'm taking advantage of this to kind of announce this is the direction we're going. So having said that, I wanted to make sure you had my contact information, and I'm ready for questions. And I about timed that right, because I wanted to make sure I had at least 10 to 15 minutes for questions. Yes.
That's not really a question, but since you're fairly new, have you talked to the people at the Mariners Museum? They went to $1 entry fee, and I understand it was a huge success. I don't know how they did all that, but I just thought I'd mention that.
So when I came here, it took all of 2 weeks before I ended up meeting Howard, the director out there, because everyone kept telling me I had to meet him and find out about that program. I'll admit, he does have a little bit more financial backing, and it supports that. He's got enough money stored up, for lack of a better term, that they can actually maintain most of their exhibits off the interest. Museums for All was our first step towards that, to make sure we can broaden our reach and our audience, but we're not at that point yet. Hopefully in the future we can raise enough money where that would be a possibility. I do think that that's the right way to go. It's where I like North Carolina's museums. A lot of their museums are free because they realize the value it brings to the community. But we have to work on that. Yes.
Just comment, Chuck. I happen to know that there are a lot of docents out there who look forward to coming back. I was one of them. But Howie Lewis, who was that chief test pilot out here right after I retired, was one of the docents. Okay? I was one. There's a whole bunch of people who would look forward to coming back. As you know, the docent program got stopped, okay? But I'm sure a lot of people would be glad to come back.
Well, I know that since I've been there, everyone's talked about the docent program and bringing it back. I just want to make sure that if we do it, everyone's kind of coming back completely. What I don't want to do is start something and not have it completely figured out, solved out, so we can kind of grow from that. I've seen too many programs that are put in without half-heartedly, and then it kind of fizzled. What I don't want to do is fizzle, because if we create something that gets people excited, I want to make sure that it's sustainable. So thank you. Yes.
Charlie Cockle. One of the things about museums is it's the past.
Mhm.
And I think kids are really looking to see, what does it mean to me?
Yeah.
What can I do to get involved in something like this? What's the future going to be? I think we've got to move some from the past. This is what we did, and look at all the nice artifacts and everything that took place. But people in this area are bombarded with that kind of stuff. There's all kinds of, there's always shows on TV. There's all kinds of information they get on what took place in the past. But I think most kids are wondering, so what? Is there something here that is useful for me? Where's this stuff going in the future? Yeah, we went to the moon. What else is going to happen? Is anything else going to happen? Are we going to go back? What are we really doing to advance it? And how can I be a part of it? So I think we've got to look at, when we include people, it's got to say, you can be a part of this.
Yeah. No, I agree. And the newest exhibits that is really there, there's the early childhood space and there's the space gallery. When I came in, the space gallery, if you've been through it so far, it's newer, it's more focused on the science side of things, but it's got a lot of digital elements to it. What I'm going to try to do is take a couple of those digital elements off the floor right now, because I just temporarily, to back up some of the ones that are there, put in some more hands-on things, but I'm going to focus on the careers. So I'm going to take that to not just studying space, but the careers tied to it. That lunar habitat capsule, the inflatable capsule that we have, I've already got it so we can project people working inside of it. So it'd be like shadow projections. So it can show the jobs. We can talk about the careers tied to the satellites and some of the rovers that we have on the sides. We're not highlighting the jobs tied to it. So if that becomes science, but also the careers tied to it, we've now got all the history and how we've built up to this. And this is the careers into the future and how we're pulling it all together and going to continue some of that work. So that's my vision for the space. I think it's already kind of laid out there. It's just a matter of kind of talking about it a little bit differently, because I think I want to get kids excited about, this is what we've done, but here's how I can be part of something that's going to go into the future. So it's going to take some work. I can use some help on some of that, but I'm going to try to tie it to future careers, because I think I want kids walking away saying, I want to do that. Yes.
Doug Morris here. I'm assuming you're appealing for docents. Can you give a thumbnail sketch of the process of becoming a docent?
You've asked me something I'm unfortunately not as prepared for as I wish I was.
Okay.
So having said that,
later.
I'll just be very honest. I don't have that in place yet. I was hoping to have the gallery educator in place, because I need a point of contact person. And that would be the point of contact person, because they're going to be the person on the floor as well, also learning the stories, and also kind of helping, for lack of a better term, police the floor, while I make sure that the docents are working more or less on telling the stories, because I want that storytelling to be that positive piece of it and kind of move that forward. So I will say there will be someone called a gallery educator there at some point. That'll be the point person. I'll put something online. I'll make sure to communicate back to this center. And until then, you can use my contact information that's up there right now.
Thank you.
So.
Anybody online that have a question, raise your hand. See anybody in there? Jeff?
Or speak up.
Yeah, speak up if you have a question. Olaf, you out there at Oak Ridge, Tennessee, have you got anything to say?
You're muted, Olaf.
If you're talking, we can't hear you. And he was talking.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to say that I enjoyed the introduction about his background at the high school in Oak Ridge, as well as working with the museum and the K-25 museum, as well as the Oak Ridge labs. And I'm doing all of those now. So I'm working with the high school kids. I'm working with the lab and the museum out here. So it's a very good background. And I enjoyed the talk.
Thanks, Olaf. Any other questions?
Now, I will say I focused most of this on the center and trying to bring the docent program back, but I was serious that since I was the STEM coordinator for the state, as you're looking to kind of build up how you guys are tying to some of the STEM programming happening in the area, please let me know. I'll gladly help in that area too. That was what I've done for 5 years, and I'm trying to work with several different communities in STEM programming, and including several Saturday events coming up over the next several weeks. So if you're interested in jumping in on some of that, let me know about that as well. Yes.
Bill, what do you do if a civic organization wants to come as a group and visit the museum?
So we do actually have group rates, and we do have that all set up. So you can actually call the center, and we do have someone that can actually help set that up for a group that comes in. And actually setting it up as a group is always a great experience in my opinion, because the more people you have kind of working together on that, I like it when communities and families come together, because anytime someone's interested, you have the rest of that community to help support that enthusiasm too, so it doesn't wane. That's true of young kids, but that's true of anybody. So that'd be great. Yes.
I had a question. I guess this is live. Do you do outreach to the schools? In other words, visit and kind of like take an exhibit with you to get their interest up?
So we do not take exhibits out, but we do have a program called STEM 360, and it's actually where we get most of our outreach right now. We work with 4 different school districts, about 30 teachers. What we do is we do training for the teachers, and we created a program that is sponsored by the state, where we take the teachers, train them, and we take the kids out to multiple centers within the community, not just the Air and Space Center, but it includes the botanical gardens, the zoo. The reason we do that is we needed to create those multiple touch points for those kids throughout the community, and also kind of reinforce that a lot of learning happens outside of the classroom setting. That is something that's really important. It's something we need to kind of focus on. In fact, there was a great article a long time ago, 2010, that came out called the 95% solution, that kids, actually anyone, only ever learns 5% really in a classroom setting. That's all the time we have for that. All the rest of this, we're learning by reading, experiencing, working out in the world other than just what's happening in a formal classroom. So how do we make sure that kids identify that as a learning opportunity and make the most of it? So the STEM 360 is working with the kids and the teachers, working with different places in the community so those kids have those connections and potentially see themselves if not going to aerospace, looking at going into environmental science, or studying zoology, or the different areas that we work with. So we do have a lot of
Yeah,
outreach.
that sounds great. Thank you.
I'll be around afterwards if anybody else has any more questions.
And at this time, I'm supposed to hand you one of our mugs, but I'm delinquent in bringing them with us, so I'll come by and
That sounds good.
drop it off.